Lisa,
Yes, baby girl.
when I grow up, I want to be a woman to society.
And so shall you be.
Hey, this is Lisa Landry. Welcome to A Menace to Society. I am chatting today with Allie Esslinger. How are you, Allie?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for coming and talking to me. Allie, I've known you for a very long time, and we met in New York City.
Yeah, you got me my first job in New York City.
I did,
the comic
didn't
strip.
I thought I did, but I was unsure. I know you were a youngin' when I met you.
I was 23 years old, I think.
And you had come from Alabama.
It was crazy.
Okay, any LSU fans listening? I know that we got a Bama girl on the podcast today, but I just want y'all to give her a pass.
I mean, except for one weekend of the year, like we're all SEC, right?
Yes, that's when we come together and there's no headbutting or name calling.
Yeah, that one weekend though, it's atrocious. It's no one's best weekend of the year.
Now, what's it like to come from Alabama to New York City?
Gosh, I mean, a lot of it's exactly like you think. Like, I was from a really small town. I did go to school in Tuscaloosa, which is slightly more liberal and obviously a very academic place. But I grew up across the street from the cotton field. I was, like, the only person of color at my school until middle school. Like, it's a lot of the things that probably pop into people's heads about Alabama is what I lived while I was in Alabama. But then honestly, like, I got to New York, I was going to grad school. For me, like, one of the bigger adjustments was, like, not having cable because I was so poor and just so broke and, like, sticker shocked by everything. I went from, like, watching TV all the time to not having cable when I got here in 2007, and that was like right before Hulu. So that was like a bigger adjustment than a lot of other things, I would say.
Isn't that wild? You missed your cable from living in the country, and then you moved to one of the busiest, most culturally diverse cities on the planet, and you miss your A&E?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was 23. I hope to blame a little bit of it on that.
Yeah.
I mean, being in the city and, like, being around a lot of people and having things to do, like, that's why I came to New York. So not realizing that I couldn't have cable. Like, can't have it all, Lisa. That's what they can say.
I can have ramen or I can have an old rerun of Mork and Mindy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's like a deli, obviously, like a corner store on my street, and I lived in downtown Brooklyn before it was Dobro. So it's just like there's nothing. It's kind of a desert. I had to walk, I don't know, 10 minutes to get to the train, and there's nothing in between. But there was this one deli. I didn't eat that much ramen, but I got like a quart of egg salad every week, and I ate egg salad sandwiches every day. And like that's what I ate for, I don't know, the first 6 weeks or 8 weeks I was here because I didn't have a job yet. It was disgusting. And I can't eat egg salad anymore. But I mean, it was worth it in hindsight. But I mean, my friend's boyfriend lived here, and she was in DC, so she would come up on the weekends every once in a while. We would grab brunch, and I would like eat this brunch the first time I've had anything except for egg salad for the last couple of weeks, and then I would just get so sick because my system wasn't used to anything except for egg salad. It was really bleak for a few weeks.
Your tummy was like, I want my struggle food. What is this?
Yeah. Yeah, it was like French toast. Get out of here.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah.
So why did you pick New York? Like, I'm like you, I'm from the South. I grew up in a small town, but I was near New Orleans. And then I always dreamt of going to New York. Is that what brought you to New York, or did you want to go to film school, or?
No, that's exactly it. I wanted to come to New York. And then I applied to grad schools that were in New York, and that was it. I just wanted to figure out a way to get here. And I think for me, I'd come once or twice. Well, I came once in high school, and that was my first time, and it was just, like, everything that I ever imagined. My friend Kara and I stayed at like the YMCA on Lexington while my mom was at a conference like in Westchester or something. So we were like 16. We felt like we were the coolest kids ever because we were just like walking around Midtown shopping at Benetton. Like, it was ridiculous. But it was awesome. And I was just like, yeah, I want to go, like, I have to get back there. So that was just like, you see it all the time on TV, you see it in movies. Like, it feels very familiar, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So just the idea that you can, like, go and make it your own. And you also see so many stories of, like, it's going to be hard. Like, it's going to kick your ass. Like, you know that I don't think you come in with, like, these expectations of it just being this, like, magical place. Like, you come to New York because you want to work hard and, like, make something for yourself.
Yeah, New York does.
So that's what I wanted to do.
New York does respect the hustle, you know?
Yeah, which is great because if you're kind of resigned to having to hustle anyway, you might as well do it here.
Right. Yeah, true that. So you ended up getting your graduate studies at what school is it? New School?
Yeah, the New School.
You're a filmmaker now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a producer, so I've directed some things that are very, like, branded content or commercial, but when it's, like, broader and more narrative and, like, bigger productions, I typically work with the director, and I help sort of pull together the logistics and produce it. Like, make sure everything's running well on set, make sure the director has whatever she needs, but I haven't really been a writer-director of, like, feature films or anything like that.
You're more niche market, too.
Yeah. I realized a lot of the work that I've done has been specifically for LGBT women. So on both the production side and then also the distribution side, I've found that there's just a big disconnect between both, like, quality and quantity of LGBT content, especially when you're thinking about it from a female perspective, and then also, like, helping audiences access that content. It's really hard. It's not films that typically get a big theatrical release all the time, maybe one a year, and that's a good year for the LGBT market. So a lot of what I've done as my job and also as, like, my passion has been to try to figure out ways to prove the demand for LGBT content and then help finance and make it easier for filmmakers themselves to access funding in order to, like, increase the supply of those films.
So you're talking, like, non-porn, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, non-porn has been my niche. It's not everyone.
Because I think there's a lot of lesbian porn out there. Like, that market is doing well, from what I understand. Yeah,
there is a lot of lesbian porn. A lot of people assume that when I say I make lesbian content, that I mean porn.
Isn't that awful? It's awful, like, what people perceive as acceptable or, like, genre. And here you are, you're making actual content. You have your own film company.
Yeah, and I think, although this is not scientific and everyone has their own taste for porn, but I don't even think that, like, lesbian porn is even in our wheelhouse in terms of, I don't think lesbian porn is created for lesbians. So, like, it's not, it just would never make it through the test of, like, would our audience watch this for the most part? Because it's just not very, I think when you have a female audience, like, it's hard to watch female porn from a male point of view.
Yeah, well, totally.
It just doesn't connect.
You're like, you look at some of these films and you're like, wait a minute, there's no way I'd let some chick stick a nail that long anywhere near up me.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
That would never happen. So you're giving an alternative to the market.
Exactly. Like, I mean, there are a lot of films that get made each year, particularly shorts. There's been a big renaissance of web series, but there are a lot of feature films that go through festivals. One or two are typically in Sundance and South by Southwest, but then there's about 250 LGBT film festivals each year around the world. So there's a lot of content, and I mean, there's a big spectrum of, like, things that are really mind-blowingly good and things that you can tell weren't able to raise the the desired funding amount, and they're shot and edited by small teams on a shoestring budget. But there's a ton of content, and it just never sees the light of day in a traditional, like, theatrical setting.
Mm-hmm.
So figuring out how to work with those content creators and getting their content onto our platform, which is called Section 2. Right now, people can ingest their content into our system, and then customers can rent or download it. But we're really trying to figure out how to deliver it as seamlessly as, like, Amazon Prime or Netflix, but really focusing in on this market and really learning as much as we can about LGBT women, and figuring out how then the next step is, like, proving out to companies that these are a viable market source, and they should be advertising directly to the women on our platform, because they make decisions in their household, and they are very loyal consumers, and they really want to support companies that support them. So there's a few different steps, and we're still at, like, the earliest stages, but I think there's an entire industry and an entire sort of opportunity around LGBT women. And for me, it starts with content, but I think that's a pretty logical place in general, because anecdotally and also statistically, a lot of the in-house research we've done, like, women just they really want to see themselves on screen, and they really want to be able to get behind news stories and realize that there's, like, great quality content that tells stories that relate directly to them. So I think getting people onto a platform by having great content is the first step in what could be, like, a real domino effect to sort of break down the barriers of traditional capitalism in terms of thinking about these women.
Are you saying that you're putting quality content out there for people to access if they choose to do so?
Yeah, that's the goal, and I think we've, like, been moderately successful, but that's definitely a more concise way to say it. Like, we want to deliver quality content to women who want to see LGBT content.
That's a very novel idea. And anybody can go and check out the content on Section 2. And that's Roman numeral 2, like as if you were writing an 11. Section 2, and you can go and check out the content there that's available. Allie, do you think that one of the reasons there aren't more LGBT shows featuring women, or maybe films featuring those women, do you think it's because of finances? Because advertisers just figure, well, you know, lesbians don't have as much income, women make less money, so you have two women in the home, you're not going to have as much disposable income, so why should we market to that audience?
Yeah, I think that's the initial knee-jerk reaction. When you think about LGBT as a whole, and you think about this community, I think marketers gravitate towards the men because the assumption is that they're two men, double income, they're not making 77 cents on the dollar, but by virtue of being men, and they're not going to have any surprise pregnancies. They're not going to be the one to traditionally take care of their parents in a broader family context. Like, it's just at face value, it's a household that has more opportunity for ROI if people sort of focus their attention there. And then I think it becomes so that's like the first level of research. And then you have all these companies who are like, yeah, we have an LGBT budget, and we're going to go after the LGBT market, and that's going to be alcohol in gay bars or hosting parties. And then that just sort of segregates the audience between traditionally male and female. Mm-hmm. But it's a little bit lazy, because if you think about it for another half a second, you realize that, like, there are no two segments of the population who like the same things less than gay men and gay women. And I mean, I'm speaking about it very broadly and, like, very binary, but, like, if you think about, like, what gay men want to see on screen,
penises.
It's men. Like, gay women don't. Like, it's just, like, if you start thinking about it just in these broad terms, like, there's a lot of room for complication, and there's a lot of room for nuance, but lumping together LGBTQ, male and then female, and pretending like it's all one homogenous group is really silly.
Yeah, it's short-sighted.
Yeah, and then when you compound that sort of thinking with the thinking that goes into funding films and the systemic way that women, and then more specifically marginalized women, have to struggle to like enter the systems of film school and then find collaborators and then raise financing based on these like larger forces against the sale of their films, it becomes a self-perpetuating cycle of, it's really hard to finance these films. It's really hard to market them to a big audience. Why should we finance this when we could finance something for gay men? Because we know exactly who they are, and we know what they're going to like, and we know that XYZ after that. So I think that there's a lot of forces that fall into it, but maybe the easiest one to tackle is just really good storytelling around why LGBTQ women should not be overlooked as their own like indomitable force in the market. And I think that starts to open up a lot of opportunities.
Mm-hmm. And you were
from that point.
You were talking about these film festivals or these screenings, I would reckon, for lack of a better term, around 250 of them, you said, around the world?
Yeah,
is
250 LGBTQ film festivals each year.
Is the biggest one in Indiana?
Probably. I don't know off the top of my head, but maybe. There's one in Birmingham, Alabama.
Really?
Which is exciting. Yeah.
Huh. You know, it's weird. We were talking the other day about how a lot of demographics are shifting as people don't have the money to live in Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco. A lot of the LGBTQ community is, maybe it's an acceptance thing, but it's also a relocation thing or a not moving away thing from these smaller markets like Birmingham or Tulsa or even Houston. Like, these populations are growing and being more accepted.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think some of it is overall just like more acceptance. Some of it is we're not going to leave. We really like our home in these Midwestern states or southern states. Like, people are coming around slowly. It's worth sort of digging in and making a society and making the world a better place by being the point of contact for people.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, on our site specifically, we have a really spread out quadrant between the four, like, northeast, southeast, northwest, southwest. Like, it's all like 28%. There's no one sector that is more heavily populated in terms of the traffic on Section 2. And then when you look at the coast, like, only anywhere between 12 to 20% of our traffic at any given time is coming from the coast, which means all of the rest of it is either foreign or flyover states, which is awesome. And I think that like sort of keeps us going sometimes, because there are people like me who didn't grow up in a big city, didn't have a lot of access to this content, and now being able to deliver it shows that there is still a need, and that there is still, even if you could go see it in a theater, maybe your town isn't quite the place where you want to do it, but being able to access those films online is still really powerful, which is great.
Yeah, you're making a difference. You're definitely giving a product to people who are searching for something specific. And, you know, you can be across from a cotton field, and as long as your Wi-Fi router's working, you can go to Section 2 and feel like you're part of a community and being represented on a screen, you know?
Exactly. Which, I mean, I've said this a couple of times in life, so I apologize if I've already said this to you, but in 1997, the Birmingham ABC affiliate refused to air the Ellen DeGeneres, like, coming out episode. So it was on everywhere in the U.S. except for in Birmingham. Like, you just couldn't watch it at your house.
And that's 20 years ago.
Sort of,
that's only 20 years ago. That's not that long. That's half a generation.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, that means that, like, lesbians as a demographic, like, these women have only been validated. They're not even legal yet. Like, they're not even 21. It's still a really young audience that could really be, like, shaped and empowered and reinvigorated. And there's just no, like, I think the push has to come from within the community, and then, like, slowly build allies within the industry and within the advertising industry, because it's just, we haven't been around that long, and we haven't had all the resources to sort of mature ourselves at a normal pace. So there's still like so much work that can be done and so much good that can be done, which is why I think it's such a big opportunity and such an exciting like place to be in from a career perspective.
Is that why you started the hashtag Better Representation?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that we deserve better representation. Like, we deserve something that's not stereotypical, but also better representation of LGBTQ women in pop culture. I think that's good for everyone. It's not just good for LGBTQ women. It's good for everyone who sees like more human, more personal portrayals of these women, because then it becomes a safer world for everyone, but particularly LGBTQ women.
Yes, you're not a stereotype with a rat tail
Yeah.
and a vest playing softball.
Which I did play a lot of softball in my youth. But that purely coincidental, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so I know you've been all over the world, literally. You went to Cannes, and I just gotta tell you, I'm real proud of you for that. Like, I can't imagine. I came from a small town too, but it wasn't across from a cotton field. And I didn't grow up the only person who looked like me until I was in middle school. And now you've come to realize so many of your dreams, and you went to Cannes.
Yeah, I mean, that was awesome. It was a little frivolous, I will admit. It was pretty amazing. I got to go to the film festival in May, which was great.
Why were you there exactly?
Yeah, I mean, so I do have a project that I'm producing as part of Section 2. So I was setting up meetings and trying to find some new partners for that film. But the way I got there, like, logistically, was through my MBA program. I'm finishing my MBA at NYU, and there's a class that studies, like, the art and commerce of cinema. And part of that culminating experience is spending 10 days at the festival, which was amazing.
Why would you get an MBA when you're already building a website and you're streaming content and you've made all these accomplishments come true? Why are you back in school, girl?
I think that's a valid question, and I did struggle with it a bit, but ultimately I think that all of the like sexy pieces of go disrupt the system, go start your own thing, live outside the margins, is not that appealing to people who have always had to live outside the margins and who have never had the opportunity to do something in a straightforward trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that when I was starting to get momentum, and we've had some really powerful allies and some really great mentors helping shape Section 2 from its inception. HBO's Project Greenlight, we've been able to do a lot of really cool things, but I realized on the flip side that I also I've had the opportunity to work with, to meet like 1,400, 1,500 content creators, and if Section 2 is going to be a piece of their career trajectory, and if Section 2 is really going to hopefully play a positive role as they are starting out and meeting audiences and building out some of the elements for a sustainable career, I really felt a responsibility to make sure that I wasn't I just didn't want to be a snake oil salesman, I guess. Like, I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was talking about. I wanted to make sure that I could deliver on the things that I wanted to deliver on, and make sure that the platform understood everything from both sides of the industry. It wasn't just for the consumers. It wasn't just for the creators. I just felt like I needed a bigger picture. Because filmmakers, particularly indie filmmakers, particularly people who aren't in New York or LA, it's a vulnerable population, and not like black men in a hoodie vulnerable population, but people see that these filmmakers will do almost anything to realize their dreams, and they tell them that they're going to be the ones to help. And they can get filmmakers to pay a lot of money for just some idea or some brand or some buy-in from this indie film community. And I just don't think that that's fair. And I don't think that people who are also just trying to figure out how to make it in the industry should ride on the backs of people that they're saying they're going to help. So I just wanted to be transparent about the fact that we were a startup and we had these ideas that were non-traditional, but we also had this credential of an MBA and a lot of dedicated time spent learning corporate finance and having our theories picked apart by other MBA students and having one-on-one conversations with some of the smartest, like, teachers in the world. And I just, like, 2 years later, I still think this is a great opportunity, and I still have such a hard time understanding if I could ever be happy at a job that wasn't making Section 2 better. But I also, like, see why you iterate and why you go from, like, having an idea to having a business model to having someone try to break it and try to break you over time. Like, I think the process is really important for making sure the final product is good.
Oh my gosh, you're blowing my mind. You know, you're an Alabama girl. You're not supposed to be this intellectual and studying everything from all angles because you're just a filmmaker.
Yeah, I'm not this smart on Saturday afternoons in the middle of, like, a touchy fourth quarter.
You know, I'm busting on you too, because you know there is a lot of bigotry towards Southern people, and I would think, especially a woman of color from the South, like the things that we hear being from the South, moving to a big city like that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I, like, can operate as a bit of a surprise in a lot of different rooms that I'm in. But for the most part, I think that's to our advantage. But I would be remiss not to give credit to all of the women of color who did just, like, stand up and elect Doug Jones in Alabama. Like, there are just, like, pockets of really hopeful, optimistic seeing. And people in Alabama do amazing things all the time. I do think I'm lucky that I was able to sort of leave and get some perspective. I don't know that I'll be the one to go back and, like, use the things I've learned, but
yeah, but you're doing it from New York. You're sharing what you've learned from New York.
I do love New York, even when it only likes me as a friend.
It's a bad relationship, isn't it? New York will slap your face,
tough.
and you're like, no, take me back. I don't want to go. She's like kicking you down the stairs in the subway platform, and you're like, don't you love me? What did I do?
I know. It's just so, like, it's such a novel thing to hear people talk about, like, how they spend their free time, like, how they're saving money and have savings accounts. It's impressive.
It's the biggest life hack in New York. Just stay indoors.
Yeah, exactly.
Just stream some Section 2 and make some popcorn.
Absolutely.
Allie, thank you so much for telling us about what you're doing, and I hope you're inspiring some younger listeners, especially maybe they're from one of those flyover states and they're not sure, like, how do you make this happen? Like I said, I'm just proud of you, and I'm loving your content, and I encourage anybody listening, please check out Section 2.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. SectionII.com. We're trying to figure out how to course correct for such a bad decision early on.
Oh, that's my whole life, girl. It's a series of bad decisions trying to come unraveled.
Yeah. I mean, that is actually what a startup is, I think. You, like, have one good idea and then 100 bad decisions to try to make it happen.
Oops. All right, so Section II, that's the way people can access you right now until you figure out what you want to rebrand as?
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, if anyone has content or ideas for content, we're really easily accessible, and we love to hear what people would like to see and try to make it happen.
That's good.
Thank you so much for thinking about us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, y'all, for listening. Please join me at lisalandry.com and come back for next Womanist Wednesday. Hey, Ari, love you.